Okay, so I've got the not so great camera, and anyhow, I have to ignore the traffic behind us. But this will give you guys a little bit of an idea of what we got to work with here. Y'all keep asking me about it, so here you go. I just now turned the heat up on it. I'm using just the old turkey fire base. Used to do this on the Coleman stove, but that's 40 pounds of lead that's in the pot. Doesn't look like that much, but sorry, got distracted there. Anyhow, I'm going to try to keep these mixes to about 40 pounds each. We're going to cast these out into just ingots. Not going to try to mix everything in this pot because we're using standard 1 pound ingot molds. That way when we go to mix them in the pouring pot, if we want to keep the same mix so we don't have to worry about batch to batch consistency, we simply take 1 ingot of one ingot of the other, however many we need, and it still comes out to the exact mix because all this is kept separate and in individual batches. So let me get the old respirator on here, and we're going to flux it if it's up to temp. Now you want to keep your flux temp up a little higher. You want to keep it above the melting point, quite a bit above the melting point, for the reason that you want this to blend together. And we're using just plain old paraffin. A lot of times I'll use bullet lube. And use paraffin. A lot of people just use match. But the thing is you can see the oxidation starting on top. This is going to mix the metals together because this is not pure lead. Unfortunately, this has a lot of zinc in it. And we're going to have to cut this at least 3 to 1, possibly 4 to 1 with pure lead, because the zinc is going to be too hard. We'll get into the zinc and the differences in another go round, but right now just know this has a lot of zinc in it, so we're going to have to keep the melt temp up, keep the flux temp up. And I'm also going to use a torch to light the flux fumes, because a lot of times what happens when you put the flux on, it's going to stay on top. When you start stirring it in, if you don't light it yourself, it can flash over at an unknown moment, and trust me, it's not real fun when this stuff flashes over and catches on fire when you got your hand over the top of it, unless you just need a good exfoliation job. So I'm going to put the respirator on, and we're going to see if it's hot enough to flux. Alright. You also have to be careful putting the spoon in here, because a lot of times, especially cast iron spoons, yeah, I'll explain this in a minute, but we'll get to it. Keep the head back. Well, we didn't even have to torch it. And in a moment we'll also get into safety gear and why I'm not using it. And all the lead runs right out, and you have just the dross. Now for the pour off. I will turn it down just a hair. And now for the pour off. I will turn it down just a hair. And now for the pour off. I will turn it down just a hair. And now for the pour off. I will turn it down just a hair. And now for the pour off. I will turn it down just a hair. And now for the pour off. I will turn it down just a hair. And now for the pour off. I will turn it down just a hair. And now for the pour off. I will turn it down just a hair. And now for the pour off. I will turn it down just a hair. And now for the pour off. I will turn it down just a hair. And now for the pour off. I will turn it down just a hair. And now for the pour off. I will turn it down just a hair. And now for the pour off. I will turn it down just a hair. And now for the pour off. I will turn it down just a hair. And now for the pour off. I will turn it down just a hair. And now for the pour off. I will turn it down just a hair. And now for the pour off. I will turn it down just a hair. And now for the pour off. I will turn it down just a hair. And now for the pour off. I will turn it down just a hair. And now for the pour off. I will turn mostly to save on gas. You'll see I'm easing this in and always keeping my head back. I am wearing safety glasses. Yay. And if I can can't see the back of the camera here, my light went out. Now what's going to happen is when this starts heating up, or the more you pour it, this is going to get heated up, the longer it's going to take for that to solidify. A good cold day on the ground works good for this. You can take you a towel, a wet towel. These are aluminum, cast aluminum mold, so it won't hurt. And again, I keep forgetting I got the respirator on, so I'll explain all this in a bit. And there we have 4 pounds. And if you're OCD, you can go back over them, and even them out and make them pretty. And as you can see, that is just the second pour, and the mold's already so hot. I can tip it up, you can see how it's kind of running. So I'll set these on the ground till they solidify. And I can still turn down the heat just a little. Once you get the pot hot, it generally stays hot. Actually, I can take this off now that I'm done fluxing. Okay. So, once you get the pot hot, it generally stays hot for a long time. Also, part of the pile we have to do, each one of these is 35 pounds. So you always want to try and leave some lead in the bottom of your pot for the next melt. What was in that pot when I started the video was one of those and another 5 pounds that I'd already had. This is where we got the 40 pounds from. That helped. I can smell grass burning. Caught the leaves on fire. But when you have just a bare bottom pot and you put the lead in, you're going to get only the contact of that one spot, and it will take a lot longer to heat up. So if you cast a lot of lead, if you smelt a lot of lead, leave something in the bottom of your pot for the next reheat. Yeah, wood handle, I can set it down there. Okay, time to set this on the ground again. And those 4 ingots haven't even begun to cool. You do want to keep your pot up to a temp where you're not going to get around the edges. Generally, when you're using a gas burner type, it's of course going to be colder around the edges when you turn the flame down. So if you start getting a little bit of solidification around the edges here, then you got your temp too low. I said, as long as you keep it melted after it's fluxed, you're going to keep the lead from separating. The lead and the antimony and what other metals. Yes, unfortunately, as I said, it has zinc in it. We can show you that possibly in a bit. If not, we'll get it the next go around. And as you'll also notice, I'm just kind of dipping. I'm not stirring it. We're just dipping it straight. Okay, so that pretty much basically about covers our basics up to this point. I'm going to go ahead and shut this down for a minute. I've got 6 more of these 35 pounders of this mix to go, and I'm going to go ahead and run that because I don't want to let it cool down, heat up, so we can show what we're talking about, the zinc properties. I'll do that at the end of the 6th pot that I'm going to run, and we'll go from there.